I'm Alisha Morgan, and this is my scary story. A little girl and her brother were walking home one evening. They had gone into town to purchase a few items for their mother and father. Their mother needed some new pantyhose, while the father requested worms to use as bait on his next fishing trip. The little girl, Abby, was twirling the pair of pantyhose in the air. She got a thrill out of watching the clothing float in the evening breeze and hearing the leaves crackle and snap under her sandals. Her brother Wes, however, giggled with delight when the slimy, squishy worms wriggled away from his poking. The plump creatures were contained in a pail that he merrily swung at his side. The siblings had to cross through a patch of woods on their way home. Neither liked the eerie trees or the uncanny silence that loomed over them, but tried to prove to the other that they were brave by not showing their fear. Suddenly, a ghostly moan swept through the woods and twisted around the boughs of the trees, and the noise rang in their ears. Both jumped, then slightly picked up their pace. Wes silently grasped his older sister's hand. This made both of them a little braver. A cackle soon screeched as well. They tried to walk away from the horrifying sound, but the hideous laughter seemed to come from every direction. Soon the children were lost, and the full moon hung low and ominous in the black sky, their only light. Abby tripped over an outstretched root and tumbled off the path into the dense brush. She screamed, causing Wes to follow suit. He raced towards his sister, but when he reached her, the sight before him made him stop in his tracks. She was covered by a pumpkin patch, and a bright white light hung over her. It was a ghost. Wes's approach uplifted dry autumn leaves, and the crisp noise caught the ghost's attention. The spirit leered towards him, then relinquished such an appalling cry, both the children covered their ears with their hands. Abby got an idea. Her mother's pantyhose were still wrapped in her fist, and she waved them broadly by the ghost. She yelled to her brother to tell him to go, but he stood his ground. "I'm not leaving without you," he said simply. Abby immediately dropped the stockings, grabbing her brother's hand, then raced away from the ghost. After a few minutes, they came upon a swamp. "That was scary," Abby gasped, catching her breath. "Yeah," Wes replied. Neither child noticed the pair of unblinking eyes in the murk that quietly floated closer and closer toward the bank of the swamp. The beast growled deeply. Then everything happened quickly. Large pointed teeth glistened in the moonlight. Wes rolled away from his sister's push, and Abby leaped backwards out of reach of the alligator's jaws. If someone was to pass by the woods then, that person would have heard two screams. The alligator lifted itself out of the oozing mud to plant its feet on dry ground. Abby was soon in the middle of a giant tree, and thicker than a wall, and a hungry set of jaws. The icy fear in her bones immobilized and silenced her. As the teeth opened, a large stick of wood popped the monster on the head. It turned towards Wes, who had thrown it. "Are you crazy?" she asked. "I have a plan," he screamed. During all of this, the boy had managed to keep his pail of pink worms. He threw one with accuracy into the giant maw, hoping with all his might that alligators liked worms as much as fish. Apparently it did, and it backed away from Abby a little bit. Again he fed it, succeeding in 3 more feet between his sister and the hungry animal. He threw the entire pail of worms into the swamp. The sickening splash was followed by the alligator, eager to reach the food. Wes clapped his hands together and exclaimed proudly, "Ta-da!" "Wes, stuck," his sister howled. He flattened himself to the soft, mossy grass as a witch on her broom whizzed by where his head had just been. Again they heard the cackle. Frustrated, Abby yelled, "I'm tired of all this stupid danger." As the witch aimed for her, she leaped into the air, grabbing the straw broom. This caused the witch to topple into a tangle of vines. She writhed and wriggled in her green prison, only getting more tangled. "You made that look easy," Wes said, impressed. "It actually was," Abby laughed. They found the path again and exited the woods, leaving behind a moaning ghost, munching alligator, and screaming witch. They made an oath to each other that they would not tell anyone what had happened to them that night. They told their parents that they strayed off the path simply. The next morning, Abby woke up, remembered her and her brother's adventure, then passed it off as a silly dream in anticipation of Halloween. But she reconsidered when she reached into the pocket of the sweater she had worn the previous night and held the miniature orange pumpkin, just like the one she remembered glimpsing just before the ghost appeared in her cupped palm. I go to Odom. I'm 13 in 8th grade, and I'm going to be a hippie for Halloween.